My name is Ryan Hogue. I'm a senior product manager at Opengear. And today we're going to talk about leveraging your out-of-band management platforms to have some quick wins on your NetOps journey. So starting with who Opengear is, we're the pioneers of out-of-band management. We've been founded since 2004, but the legacy of our company goes way back, 40 years in serial. Our founders have been doing this for a very long time. Some real industry pioneers that have brought the technology to where we are today, leveraging on a lot of history. We joined Digi in 2019, and we're trusted by 80% of the top Fortune 100 companies. So we've been around, and a lot of companies really trust us with their core business. So what we really do today and where we see ourselves is leading provider of IT management connectivity infrastructure. So it's more than just, as I mentioned, serial console. We're really providing that connectivity to your critical IT and infrastructure to allow a lot of the tools that are available today to be able to connect into those devices. So we have resilience with smart out of band. Some of those features are failover to cellular, always active liberated management fabric that helps you separate your management plane from your data plane, secure remote access, and we're really a conduit for vendor neutral operations workflows for whether it's some of your DevOps tools, your DevNet SecOps, NetOps. There's a lot of different ways to kind of put those different pieces together. But really, we're providing visibility and accessibility across our all of your network and all of your Opengear appliances through our Lighthouse console. So we have centralized management into that liberated management plane to be able to make sure you can manage all your critical infrastructure. So looking at sort of a history of out-of-band and what does a modern out-of-band look like? The classic console server was really this terminal server, serial access, be able to get into your gear, whether you didn't want to have to walk all the way down to a remote location or roll a truck, or there was some emergency where you couldn't get into the network and you either use dial-up or some other type of connection into your infrastructure to be able to remediate. Opengear created smart out of band, which gives you that resilient access with the failover to cellular, POTS line as well. And really IP access to any of your networking devices. So it's more than just serial. It created that IP connectivity as well. But now we're in this phase of NetOps 2.0. We're going to kind of talk about what does NetOps mean, what does NetOps 2.0 mean, and how does that relate to out-of-band. But it's really that always-on resilient connectivity into your infrastructure management, and being able to have infrastructure as code and leverage all the latest tools that you're going to see on the Cisco floor today. A lot of great companies doing a lot of great things, leveraging the different types of automation and basically programmatic tools to be able to manage your infrastructure. So when we talk about what NetOps actually is in relation to how we talk about it at Opengear, NetOps 1.0 is really just your network operations, focused on the click ops or where you're just fingers on keyboards typing in a CLI. That's classically been sort of the NetOps operating a network CLI into a device. The focus has been on uptime, so it's not always been as amenable to business needs. A lot of change control, a lot of making sure we're not going to break things. A focus on really just making sure things remain up versus deploying new services as quickly as sometimes if they're needed. And so this is kind of slow to support those business trends and provide value to customers. So moving into NetOps 2.0, it's actually adding that DevOps that's been going on for a little over 10 years now. As that's came about and really gained traction, networking has kind of slowed to adopt some of those tools, as we mentioned above. So the NetOps 2.0 is really a modern approach that helps you do that CI/CD pipeline and tools into infrastructure as code type of deployments, being more supportive of business, more programmatic, and that shift towards risk management rather than being risk averse. So it's making sure that you know what's you're going to have happen when you start deploying your code and your tools, because you've already reviewed those, you've put them through your your lab software that is sort of your digital twin of your network, and making sure that you understand what's going to happen. So it can include automation, but it doesn't have to. There's a lot of talk about network automation these days, and that's one of those trends that is interesting, but it can be hard to adopt at times. So we want to make sure when we're talking about NetOps, we're not always talking about network automation. Excuse me 1 minute. So when we look at the Opengear network resilience platform, this is just sort of an overview to start talking about how does Opengear fit into what we're talking about with NetOps and these new tools that are being introduced into the networking space. At the bottom couple portions of this, we have our smart out-of-band console servers. This is what we've had in market for 8-10 years at this point. These are our classic console servers. We have both cellular and non-cellular, so you have that ability to get into the network if you don't have that network access. And then you're able to come in and remediate if you need. But in today's products, we're calling these NetOps console servers or NetOps managers. And what these give you is a API-based firmware set, allows you to have more rich features, allows you to have programmatic ability to be able to have Docker container support for applications, as well as Python scripting, as well as run whatever type of tools that you want to run through our platform. And what we talk about is being there for your first day, your worst day, and every day in between. Console management and out-of-band management a lot of times has been synonymous with, hey, we're going to make sure that you're able to get into your box, into your network, be able to remediate if there's an emergency. But as we've seen with the pandemic over the last couple of years, it's more than just that. Just being able to do your daily tasks, be able to do things that remotely, that the network's not down. You don't have a problem necessarily, but you want to be able to deploy tools, be able to make changes, and know that you're going to have that sort of safety net that if something would happen, you would be able to remediate that and roll that back without being locked out and have to drive in. So again, with the day one, we're talking about secure provisioning, being able to ZTP and bring up networks. There's some risk if you put configurations on boxes, put them in a supply chain, ship them logistically. There's risks that could be intercepted. Our products use inbuilt TPM security chips to make sure you secure those partitions. So it gives you that ability to put something on site, have your smart hands or your electrician rack and stack, calls home, brings up the network over cellular, and you can start provisioning remotely, which a lot of our customers have really seen value in being able to do that because you're not able to get into colos or deploy into new sites because of the health-related issues or security risks. So it's been a really interesting add-on for our customers, as well as we still do build upon that emergency access, that remediation piece. So we're still going to always have that, our failover to cellular, out-of-band. But the everyday management is really where we're trying to make sure we're adding that value. We're trusted in the network to be that sort of insurance policy to make sure you have access, but we're already there. So let's leverage and provide value and make sure all of our customers are getting daily value and utilization out of a box that's in the rack. It gives you that presence and proximity to be able to deploy tools and telemetry and aggregation points and whatever you want to do. And when we look at Opengear's extensibility platform, when you look at this graph, it's almost sort of like a network model. When you look down at the bottom, you have sort of this physical layer of here is your physical infrastructure, whether it's networking equipment or smart power strips or PDUs or other things that you're going to want to manage. Then above that, you have us sort of at that connectivity layer where our devices are physically co-located. You have either serial console access or you have IP access, and you're able to get into connecting across in whatever way that makes sense for the tools that you're using. Above that is really where we start getting into the NetOps space, and you have your containerized sort of management of applications and services, or your automation services. So you can run things like your Dockerized containers. You can run Ansible plays. You can have your RESTful API connections from other tools. You can push things from your from Git if you want to back up your configuration, or you have a master branch and you want to roll out the latest thing. You can push out. Even if looking at things like config drift, if you get too far out from where the device should be due to sort of manual changes, it can always get re-provisioned back to where the ideal state should be according to the master. And then on top of that is really just about the applications. So we have our internal that we provide, which are smart out of band, but then you also have your provisioning services with Docker. Our Lighthouse central management software. You can push Docker Swarm, so you can actually deploy out to our nodes, to the endpoints, to the network segments that you actually need to look at. And that provides some value that you're not hanging a lot of other devices out there because you may need an IT asset. ThousandEyes is another good example of where we can play, because now you have something in the segment on that particular VLAN looking at what's happening there and getting that telemetry and understanding what's up, what's down from where that device actually lives. And then, like I said, we're open, so it's really about being able to integrate third party and making sure that you have whatever tools that you want to bring to your journey of sort of automation and where we are with that.
So I got a quick question here.
Yes.
On this particular slide. Is this kind of saying that Lighthouse is a requirement for some of those things? For API integration, do I need Lighthouse?
No, you don't need Lighthouse. What Lighthouse does for you is it gives you that sort of central management point. So you can either, whether you want to collectively have that single entry point for our devices, but really more importantly, it's about how do you effectively and efficiently get to the endpoints that you're trying to manage. We're not trying to design something that makes it easy to manage your management system. We want to almost be invisible, that we're delivering you and giving you that pathway directly to what you need. And that's where you can put different types of labels and tags on your devices and down to the serial port. So, or your, whatever you have a connectivity, whether IP or serial. So you can say, hey, I have a Catalyst, 9000, whatever model. I know it's hanging off serial port 23 on this particular console server. You can type in Cisco 9K, because that's how you have it tagged, and it's going to take you right to that device. You don't really need to know what console server is this connected to, what port is that on. You've already have that auto discovery that we can do to get your host name, auto detect what's hanging off each of the ports. And that can be automated. So on a daily basis or whatever time you want, you can have it go out and rediscover, hey, make sure these are right. Because if I go to a certain port and I have it labeled this way, is that what it was when I plugged it in 6 months ago? Or has somebody moved this to a different device, or have I recabled that? So you can make sure that it's always up to date. And you say, I need to get to the Cisco 9K. I type it into my Lighthouse search, and it pulls right up to where that port is. You may have a number of those devices, but you use the host name to recognize the one you want to get to.
And on that, is some console scraping still available? If the device or connection gets moved, right, it'll automatically update and rename. Is that?
Yes, exactly. And we call that port auto discovery. So again, you can run that manually, or you can schedule that whatever frequency you want. So at that time, it'll go through and it'll try all the different baud rates. Some of them have software selectable pinouts to be able to roll over or straight. And it'll cycle through those, and if it's not finding a host name, it'll go through an iterative sort of walk through until it finds a host name return back, and then it'll auto label that port so you know exactly where that device is and what device is connected to our ports.
In a scenario where you're talking about the auto discovery, if somebody moves something and they don't document it, because it rarely happens, and you pick up on it, so when I connect in, cool, that's great. Do you have a way to push that out? Like programmatically say, hey, wherever I track this data, this update has occurred, or does that just live within the box?
Well, it would live, so the box would surely know that, hey, there's a new host name on this port. That could get translated up to Lighthouse, but Yeah, definitely. We want to make sure that we're able to kind of create those, those business-ready reports out of, where are things, what are they connected to, using, like John Capobianco and the DevNet team. He does a lot of, he has some great examples of how he's creating business-ready things using APIs and being able to pull that data in. And that's what we would be able to facilitate because we know exactly what we're connected to because of the auto labeling from our ports.
So kind of building on the auto discover, does it work almost the same way in reverse? If I move something from port 1 to port 2, it learns it on port 2 because it's no longer connected on port 1. Does that, hey, this device isn't here, does it get pulled out? Or now do I have 2 entries and when I type in the device name, it's confused as to where it is?
Yeah, no, it should, when it does the auto discovery, and if you have all the ports selected, it should say, hey, I didn't find anything here, and it'll just redefault the port.
Okay.
Yeah, it would cause kind of a lot of confusion if it's not cleaning up after itself when you do that. I hope it explains how Opengear provides that connectivity to be able to get your applications and your sort of automation layers connected down to your physical devices and provide that pathway, whether it's over console, serial, or over IP.
So with the APIs, and maybe this is what Josh was kind of hitting on earlier, if you don't have Lighthouse, you can still hit the individual devices by API, or can you only get the devices are only basically web management, and if you want API integration, it has to be Lighthouse?
No, our firmware on our latest appliance are all RESTful API based, so it's using Yocto Linux, and it's all built on API endpoints.
So it's only the newer hardware that's got these capabilities, not like the IMs and some of the prior gens?
Correct. You can integrate some of the tools with our, our prior gen, but it's really if you want to be able to have this sort of that API structure, be able to do it programmatically that way and not rely on sort of the CLI there, as well as having the Docker support and the sort of the Python scripting. That's really in our newer products, our Operations Manager family, OM 1200, 2200, as well as our just released CM 8100 platform.
Okay.
So could you cover what notification your auto discovery does? So in Dan's example, I've moved from port 1 to port 2. Who gets told about that afterwards?
So it shows up in the device itself. As far as is it going to actually perform a notification out to some sort of reporting tool? Again, that would I'd have to double check. Does that port label have an API endpoint that you would be able to poll and actually say, hey, what is on port 27 of this particular device? And you'd be able to report that out using your some sort of templating or reporting.
One last question on that first line, the third party other, is that's defined out there right now, so I could go on the website and see what other partner applications are out there, or is that still being built out?
Well, as far as an official list, that's it's kind of meant to be open. So we're not barring working with anybody. We can work with pretty much third-party tools as long as, especially since we have the API integration. We're spending a lot of time at Cisco this week, walking around all of the partners we have and looking for new partners of how do we integrate, because we don't want to simply say, hey, we support these things, go figure out how to use it and have a good life. We want to make sure we're working with other vendors that are supporting some of these tools, and how do we integrate with them? How do we make sure that their tools have us listed in there, our API stacks kind of already fleshed out and have those connectors. So that's what we're working towards.
To follow up on that, so you have Ansible listed up there as well. Do you have pre-built playbooks that are available somewhere that people can just sort of grab it and say, this is a playbook to accomplish whatever I need to get done?
We have a few high-level examples, and part of what Matt's going to demo here in the second part of this video is not so much Ansible in this case, but some actual some examples of what you can do with this technology. Really, we want to make sure we're not predefining what customers do, but it is we want to do more than just say, hey, we support it and you have to go figure it all out. We're working towards being more offering those for people that are earlier on in their implementation of NetOps and automation, but also allowing people that are in DevNet type of businesses and software forward in their company that know how to do that. We want to make sure we're capturing both ends and providing that pathway. This is sort of my one Gartner slide, so I apologize in advance. But I did want to talk about what they see in automation trends, and it's a journey. So, if you look at talking about network automation, 65% according to Gartner last year was still manual. We're talking about the NetOps 1.0, and part of that, not everything is API. Some of it's still CLI. There's reasons why it's difficult to, just automate everything. Only 8% of enterprises are automating more than half of their networking tasks. And so when you look at the hype cycle, which I will spare you and not show, but automation is kind of in the trough of disillusionment. So it's people were excited about it, but they're kind of coming to the realization that there's challenges and it's hard, and you can't just start automating everything in your network. So, but they are reporting that by 2025, more than 25% of all enterprises will automate more than half. I think that that's going to be a lot of those companies that are software forward. They came up these unicorns over the last 10 years that are. I think that's very aggressive, and a lot of companies that have been around for a while have a lot of deployed gear and are sort of more of your blue chips out there. I don't know that they're going to be that aggressive, automating that much of their networking, but take it with a grain of salt. The really point of this is it's interesting. It's here. Some of the tools are still being worked out, but we want to help customers that are ready to adopt start that journey. So when we talk about some of the challenges of automation, why is the adoption low? And it's really, it's not without risk. There's a lot of value in doing it, but there's a blast radius when you start saying, hey, I'm going to send this Ansible play out to 1,000 devices, and the second one things go sideways, and now it's continuing to crawl through and do that. So, you can say, hey, our product's going to have some easy button that lets you just revert back, but okay, that's great that your network, is kind of back to the configuration where it was, but did your HA kick in and now your servers are falling over to some other location? Customers with shopping carts, are those shopping carts going to follow the customer to the new server, providing that the website? So being able to kind of revert back and I think going that with too much of that message kind of communicates almost like a lackadaisical attitude, maybe. Like, you really have to plan for this to work, not plan that I have a fail safe and I'll just go back and hit the undo button. I think we want to make sure we're messaging that we're not providing a parachute and you'll be able to fix your network, because not everything is just the network. There's other things that are impacted when things reconfigure and your routes change, what servers are up and connected, regardless of how quick you kind of fail that back.
So kind of building on that, as you were kind of talking through, if you're making changes and you're pushing a change and the rollback idea, and one of the things when a lot of companies are like, hey, we can track changes and we have rollback built in, but that's based on the idea that you can still connect to the device to do the rollback in the first place.
Right.
Being that you guys are coming in out of band, do you have integration with some of those systems that might push the change? And if it fails, well, I can't connect normally, so I'm going to take those configs and basically go through you guys from an out of band standpoint. Do you have some of that integration built?
So as far as official partnering, we're really looking at, if you're a CI/CD shop and you're doing DevOps and you're using your Git repositories, we could definitely take backups of our configs, or you can push over the out-of-band failover to cellular and say, hey, I'm going to roll forward or roll back, depending on your terminology of it, and push out the latest or the most current source of truth onto the device. And that's why we're saying it's not just serial. We're also supporting these IP tools. So you're able to really get that back to where it needs to be. But again, even though that's the case, we want to make sure that we're providing that pathway for all the tools to be able to go out and say, hey, this is going to work, or I can do it on these ones. And even if it goes sideways, it's going to stop there and say, hey, this went sideways, and give you that validation back. If something was to make a change, lose its connectivity, how's it going to report back that it's no longer able to, like, hey, it went wrong if it's not connected? The other challenge here is, with mixed environments, obviously, not everything's some brand new greenfield data center that they just stood up. There's a lot of companies running mixed equipment. Some of them don't have APIs. Some of them are just CLI type of devices, multi-vendor. So there's a lot of challenges that make it hard to just say, I'm going to go, push automation across all of my network stack. The other thing is lack of change control and confidence in tools. And that's why we want to talk and show a couple examples today of here's some things that some quick wins you can do that help give you that confidence and help you do things that are not actually changing, but they're actually just read only. It doesn't have to be about I'm changing my network with automation all the time. And then sort of just that limited in-house skill or tech, that cross-functional buy-in from, the network team may be ready to do this, but the rest of the IT organization may not be supporting it. And everybody has to be in the boat to go forward with it. So how does Opengear sort of make this easy? How do we do these quick wins? And it's really about that we have that proximity there. So we provide that environment to host your apps. There's a lot of shadow IT out there as far as like, hey, let's just hang a Raspberry Pi out here because I need to run this DHCP server for some unique thing, or I want to run iPerf somewhere. So you have laptops and NUCs and little things, and those are security vulnerabilities, but you need something physically kind of there to be able to do that and reachable. And that's why we want to provide that everyday value, not just the emergency box, but we want to give the networking teams and professionals a place that's their own environment. They don't have to go, hey, server guy, can I please get a VM stood up in here? I don't want to wait 3 weeks for the ticket to get approved and built out. And it's just less devices to manage. If we're already there, you're already managing us, you trust us with your recovery in the out-of-band, let's leverage us for the other things. We have some compute capabilities in there, especially in our newer products. It also separates that management access into an independent fabric too. So you're not simply putting a VLAN on a top of rack switch and calling that your management, access. Because if that goes down, even with redundancy, you're not going to have that same access, because if your BGP or your DNS gets hosed, you're not going to be able to get either one of those redundant devices. So you really want to have this independent management fabric that it also helps with your lateral movement through the network. There's a lot of talk about the zero trust, and if you separate that management access of even your device management, including like IPMI, you'd probably want that into a controlled environment where you're not just going through the same the same network that you're using for your production. So we often say don't use your network to manage your network.
Yeah.
So you want to use this independent piece to be able to get in, because if something does happen, you want to have that alternate path. So it's really about the local presence that we're already there. Now, the final piece I want to kind of mention on this too is, we're purpose built to be reliable, deliver resilient access. We're fanless designs. We operate without requiring any airflow. So you can stick us in the back of a rack in a hot aisle, it's fine, up to 50C. We're also purpose built in a way that we're focused on out of band. We're not trying to put a bunch of in-band production things like loading firewalls that you're using for in-band production purposes. We do have our own firewall and IPsec and VPN tunnels for that accessing into the independent management layer, but we're not trying to shove everything in. So you have like a virtualized firewall running that's serving your production network. If that goes sideways, well, maybe now you've also lost your out-of-band too. So we're trying to be really focused on delivering that network connectivity and a purpose-built design and solution that's focused on robust, bulletproof, resilient management. And so just to wrap up, some quick wins on NetOps and automation. This is partly what Matt is going to demo here in the next presentation. So looking at read-only tasks, you can do a lot of things that you can gain confidence in your NetOps and your automation by just looking at, hey, let me do configuration backups and diffs. Every time you log in, take a configuration snapshot. Every time you log out, take a configuration snapshot. Diff that. Is it did something change? What changed? And keep that as a historical record. Information gathering, collecting, and building reporting. Again, you can make those business-ready documents to be able to know, hey, as far as my SmartNet contracts, which ones are out of service? Which ones are coming up for end of warranty? Because you're going out there and you're collecting. Here's my serial numbers. You can connect that across your Cisco account and actually pull down based on the serial numbers which ones are coming due.
You extend that to licensing as well?
Yeah, again, so like I said, I kind of follow John Capabianco on the DevNet team, and he has some good examples on using that he actually goes out, hey, which ones are licensed, which ones is my contract up on, and where do I need to take some sort of proactive management. So when I go to log into something or I call Cisco TAC, they're not going to tell me, oh, my license is expired. I would have known about that because I've been reporting on that, and I would have saw that coming and take action of it proactively.
Excellent, thank you.
Testing and troubleshooting, these can be some predefined templates. Again, this is something Matt's going to demo here in just a minute regarding network engineers. Sometimes they want to make sure that help desk can collect the right information, but they don't want to give them access. You can predefine things in troubleshooting for a senior engineer or somebody that's good programmatically can make a tool custom for the environment to allow other people to play those and collect the information that they need without calling out to a senior person every time. And then finally, just some validation functions. Is the network operating the way you think it should? Is the do you have the VLANs on the right trunk ports? Are your routing tables as they should be? So a lot of read-only things you can do. And these are, really the quick wins of you're not pushing change, you're validating the things, reading things, you're doing a lot of maintenance to build that trust in the tools to start automating.